I think we are at a watershed moment. We see at least three very big challenges at the same time. And the first one is that indeed no one really knows what the trajectory of EU-China relations is going to be in the next months. We don't know whether there will be still a success in our negotiations with China on this comprehensive agreement on investment. We don't know whether we will be able to actually negotiate a new cooperation agenda with China. So there's a lot of uncertainty in that bilateral relationship in itself. This is much more complicated now also because of the massive US-China escalation of tensions that we are seeing these days, these weeks, basically on a really day-to-day basis. And obviously it's extremely difficult for Europe to position itself in that game. And then more beyond that, I think it's also obvious that because of the corona crisis, no one really knows how things are going to move forward in terms of economic development, in terms of domestic stability. So we don't know whether China, for instance, will require, or leaders in China, in Beijing, will think they need to double down on their authoritarian mode of governance. And we don't know how Europe will come out of this crisis, really. So a lot of challenges. And I think the big problem here is really that we will see these tensions playing out with very important decisions that are already clear. So on Hong Kong, the situation in Hong Kong, the question to what extent Europe can position itself obviously has to do with our understanding of whether China is a real partner or not. On Huawei, that telecommunications giant that is trying to enter European markets, we need to find a unified position that will position us exactly in that US-China tension. So many decisions looming, and I think it's absolutely clear that this will be quite a ride going forward. Well, first of all, let's recognize that European-China policy and also the unity behind it is something that is quite often underestimated. We have seen over the past 2-3 years a relatively high degree of unity on certain very important decisions. So for instance, we've decided jointly as the EU that China is not a market economy, or we don't treat it as one, which might sound very technical, but it has far-reaching implications for our trade defense instruments, for instance. We've also decided and jointly ramped up investment screening mechanisms across Europe. Now you might criticize it's not a very efficient mechanism, it's not very strong, but it is quite an important step forward. And also on the Belt and Road Initiative, many just see the differences. You see Italy and Hungary and Greece being partners in that endeavor, but I think as the European Union we still have managed to come up with a potential counter-strategy that needs money and intention. But we are on a relatively good track. Now, obviously that's fragile, and it very much depends on how and who is taking actually the leadership to lead Europe forward on this. I'm confident that Brussels, Berlin, Paris, but also many other member states are seeing the challenge that a single member state really cannot compete with China and also cannot pursue its interests in many ways just on a bilateral basis. So the recognition that we need Europe is growing, and I think that makes me confident about our future.